Yo, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to go over a Cyclone cast while channeling Magma Orb Deadeye build. This build is designed solely for clear speed and Legion farming. There are variations that are fantastic for boss fights, but I wanted to make a version that excelled at general mapping with great Legion clear. So the focus is going to be on movement speed and area of effect, with enough damage and mitigation to clear red maps easily. Even though I'm running with under 5k life, with high evasion and high block chance, the build feels quite tanky even against Legion rares. You also have the added benefit of constant movement with Cyclone and off-screening potential with Magma Orb. With that said, this is one of the smoothest mapping characters I've ever played, and if you're looking for a nice twist on Cyclone, I would highly recommend it. We're running a non-crit version, and you can get this up and running on a budget. I ran up to T12 maps on a 5-link. Let's talk about how the build functions. In 3.7, Cyclone has been changed to a channeling skill, allowing some really fun and powerful cast while channeling setups. We'll link Magma Orb to cast while channeling in Cyclone. Magma Orb is a chaining projectile that deals area damage. A level 21 Magma Orb will give +3 chains. Through gear in the skill tree, Magma Orb will fire 8 projectiles, or 10 if you choose to run a Dying Sun Flask, and chain 7 times for some insane off-screening. Sire of Shards is the obvious choice for the weapon. Socketed gems fire 4 additional projectiles, and those projectiles fire in a Nova, along with some projectile damage. A 6-link is around 4 exalts currently. You can pick up a 5-link for around 60 chaos. 2 Magma Orb Threshold Jewels will be used for 2 more projectiles and increased area of effect for each time Magma Orb chains. We'll get our last projectile from the Deadeye Ascendancy, which we'll discuss in a minute. The Gloomfang Amulet is the most powerful piece of gear in the build. This gives +1 chain, along with projectiles gain a percentage of non-chaos damage as extra chaos damage per chain. The Gloomfang, Sire of Shards, and Threshold Jewels are really the only mandatory items in the build. Next up, let's take a look at the Ascendancy. We're running Deadeye for increased movement speed, extra projectiles, and extra chains. Keep in mind this is just the order I decided to take the Ascendancy points in. Take them in whatever order you like. Gathering Winds first. This gives Tailwind if you've used a skill recently. Tailwind will increase action speed, which increases movement speed, along with +1000 flat evasion rating. We're going to run a Queen of the Forest, so this equates to even more movement speed eventually. Next we'll go into Farshot. This is a bit of an irrelevant node. Farshot only applies to projectile attacks, not spells like Magma Orb. So the projectile speed is really all we're getting here. Ricochet is up next. Here we pick up another +1 chain, along with projectiles deal 10% more damage for each remaining chain. With 7 chains, this is extremely powerful. Finally, for Uber Lab, Endless Munitions is picked up. The accuracy does nothing for us, but we gain the last projectile, along with a fat 50% increased area of effect. Let's take a look at the rest of the gear next. Queen of the Forest for the chest piece. This reduces movement speed by 25%, but increases movement speed by 1% per 600 evasion rating, up to 75%. With a Jade Flask up, we'll be sitting at around 40k evasion rating. I'm currently running a Devoto's Devotion for the helmet. This is mostly for the 20% movement speed. You can absolutely drop this for a tankier, cheaper helmet, but the most important thing about the helm is the lab enchant. We're going to get 2 more chains for Magma Orb here. This goes leash for the belt. This gives a bit of magic find, but we're focusing mostly on Rampage. Rampage will stack up as you kill enemies. For every 20 Rampage stacks, you'll get 1% movement speed and 2% damage. Rampage caps out at 1000. This is another decently expensive item. Again, you can easily drop it for a high life and resist belt, such as a Stygian Vice. For rings, I'm running a Flammability on Hit ring. These are really pretty cheap. I think I picked this one up for 25 chaos. Look for high life and resists on rings. If you can pick up damage here, that's great, but for general mapping, it isn't really needed. You can also get a minus mana cost to skills ring to make Cyclone free. I found this to not really be needed. Currently my Cyclone costs 6 mana, and I'm regenning 47 mana per second with Arcane Surge. For gloves, look for high life and evasion with resists. Boots, you want as much movement speed as possible. I've got a movement speed if you haven't been hit recently lab enchant, then get high life and resists here as well. I'm running a Kalova Lethal Pride Jewel that's turning Mind Over Matter into Glancing Blows, which doubles attack block and spell block, but your character takes 50% of the blocked damage. The staff has 20% attack block. With this current tree, we can get up to 74% attack block and 37% spell block. If you wanted to get up to max attack block of 75, you could get 1% on a jewel. This paired with close to 70% chance to evade with flasks up makes the build really feel tanky in maps. For the rest of the flasks, I'm running a health flask with bleed removal, an alchemist quicksilver flask of adrenaline, a cinder swallow urn, mainly because this build really doesn't have a lot of sustain. So the life regen craft here, along with gaining 2% life when killing an enemy during the flask effect, really feels good. There's a few options for your last flask. A Stibnite flask isn't bad defensively. It'll increase your chance to evade, along with giving you a bit more movement speed with Queen of the Forest, and the blind feels really good against Legion rares. The Wise Oak would be the offensive option here. Or you could run a Dying Sun, which would give you more projectiles and more area of effect. I'd say I prefer the Dying Sun the most at this point. I really don't feel like I need the extra damage or defense for general mapping from the other two flasks. Next up, let's talk about the gems. The 6th link is going to be Cyclone, Cast While Channeling, Magma Orb, Elemental Focus, Control Destruction, and Fire Pen. Slower projectiles is typically the go-to for single target with Magma Orb, but again, I didn't set up this build for anything but mapping, so I'm really not worried about doing any kind of swap. You could run greater multiple projectiles or chain while mapping as the 6th link, and then swap out to slower projectiles for bossing. I'm running 2 cast when damage taken setups. The first is level 1, linked to a level 1 Wave of Conviction and Combustion. The second is level 10, linked to a level 15 Steel Skin. Blood Rage is linked to Arcane Surge. Blood Rage is instant, which allows us to cast it while cycloning to keep Tailwind up without breaking the channel. Blood Rage also grants Frenzy charges while mapping. I'm running Dash for the movement skill. This isn't really a build where you spam your movement skill often, so I think Dash fits well and feels good. Auras are going to be Herald of Ash and Zealotry. You could run Anger over Zealotry, but I like the chance to create Consecrated Ground Zealotry provides. Rounding out the gems, we've got Vol Righteous Fire. This gives a damage boost when activated. I like to use it mostly for breaking out Legion mobs. Here's the current passive tree. I'll leave a Path of Building link in the info section of this video. For Pantheons, Soul of Lunaris for Majors. This gives physical damage reduction and movement speed for mapping. I'm currently running Soul of Gruthkul for minors, but run whatever you like here. For bandits, kill all. For leveling this character, level with a bow skill until 28 when you get Cyclone. Then switch to a melee Cyclone setup until 49 when you can equip the Sire of Shards. Then switch to what we're running here with Cast While Channeling and Magma Orb. Anyways guys, that'll about wrap it up. I hope you enjoy the build. I've farmed a ridiculous amount of currency with this character just running random maps. I personally have a hard time running the same map over and over, so I tried to build this character to be able to do just about any map quickly. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.